Evening, everybody. So tonight we've got some burning questions. Have you ever had the curious notion of publishing your own role playing material? Well, tonight I'm speaking with somebody that is doing exactly that. The creator of Scale Mail, a new role playing game that is on Kickstarter, and would like to welcome you to the show, Mike. How are you?
Good. How are you doing, Brian?
Doing fine, doing fine. So obviously, this is something that's popped up on Kickstarter.
hmm
I'm going to go ahead and share the screen with everybody so that they can take a look and follow along here. So you started this roughly almost. How long does the Kickstarter last? Does
This
it
was
run for
21 days was the
21
amount that
days? Okay.
we did. So
So you were funded within the first 24 hours, right?
2 hours. It took
Oh,
us two
first two
hours.
hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
That's
mean, we had
even
a
more impressive.
we have a modest goal, but it was that was a really pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
You think you come into this and you hope for it, but there's that little part of you that's going, is anyone going to be interested? Is anyone going to be
Right.
paying attention? And
Right.
it was nice. It was very nice to see that it is going to happen. So
Yeah. And you've got currently 3 days left to go. I mean,
mhm,
obviously, it's made the goal.
yes, it,
And I understand the trials and tribulations of getting it from, yay, we made goal to here.
yeah.
I understand all of that. But what I want to look at today, I want to run down through exactly what all scale mail is.
Mhm,
But first, I have a couple of questions for you.
absolutely.
What was, and I think this is a question that a lot of folks are probably have been asking or are at least curious about. What was the driving force to get you to, I'm going to create a new role playing system?
I think it kind of speaks to a lot of us, especially those of us who kind of have grown up with Dungeons and Dragons.
Hmm.
For a lot of us, it's the gateway drug into role playing games.
Right.
Um, I am old enough that I had first edition. I still have my original first edition Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, Monster Manual. I have dice that aren't actually numbered from 1 to 20. They're still
Yeah.
0 to 9.
Yeah.
Um, so it's always been a part of my life, and you get to a point, I think, for a lot, even gamers who are only fresh to the hobby, that you say, okay, I know this game, I play this game for a long time. How would I do it? The things that maybe the quibbles I have about the game, the things that maybe aren't connecting to me anymore like they used to,
Right.
um, just or things that you've just kind of are so ubiquitous because you've been doing it for so long.
Hmm.
Maybe it loses a little bit of the thrill that it had when you first started picking up your dice. Um, so that's kind of what started as. This was a thought experiment. It was kind of, if I wrote Dungeons and Dragons or my version of it or what I'd like to see in it, what would I do? And I think, if you look at Dungeon Crawl Classics and you look at old school
Right.
essentials and you look at all the other OSR style games, I think there's a lot of us out there, Shadow Dark, Karn,
Hmm.
Knave. It's a lot of us that are trying to recapture maybe what we originally drew us to the hobby, that feel, that vibe, that we have. And that's kind of what this was. I mean, even scale mail is a reference to chainmail,
Right.
the original, precursor of Dungeons and
Right.
Dragons.
Right. Right.
So yeah, I think that's really what it was. And then at some point you kind of get to the point with it where you say, okay, people seem to like this, who I'm sharing it with. There seems to be something here. What do I do with it? I just do. Is it become something that I just share with friends?
Right.
Is it something I share for free online, or is it something I try to make it into more? And that's kind of what it was. I have some experience. I have some previously published works that I wrote, but doing everything yourself, it's very intimidating. But it's something you kind of
Oh,
have
I can
to
imagine.
explore. Yeah. So
I can imagine. And I mean, and you have kind of taken on the hat of everything. I mean, editor, art director,
yes,
obviously writer, creator
yeah,
of,
yeah. Not artist. I have that.
not art. Yeah.
It'd be a lot of stick figures. So
That's me. Yeah, I can't draw to save my life.
yeah, me either.
How challenging has that been to kind of be the guy that wears every single hat?
Very. You have to teach yourself new skills. It's nice that, you have to ask advice from people. That's something I've never
Sure.
been afraid to do. People who have experience doing it before, getting opinions. Like layout is something that is
Right.
brand new to me. I've always just handed in a manuscript to my publishers and said, hey, here's the words, then they make the magic happen. Um, the art director side, the books that I've written, like my superhero game that I wrote for a design mechanism, they did ask me, you know, I had input into what art I wanted to see in it. So I
Right.
made a list of art through the book. But even then, you don't really know, is it going to land with people? Is it right? It's stressful, to be honest.
Yeah.
But, learning affinity publisher, and try to teach that, and, trying to figure out what the heck, all the terms that you never heard
Yeah.
before is. I don't
Oh
know what.
yeah, as far as bleed and yeah, all the technical printing terms and whatnot.
Gutter.
Yeah.
People
Gutter.
go
Yep.
like,
Yep.
"Well, you gotta watch your gutter." I'm like, "What the heck's your gutter?"
Yeah.
And I had,
There's the
watched a lot
space
of.
in it's that space right there in between. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
No, coming from the
some.
print industry, it's yeah, there are some pretty strange words that we
Yeah,
have here. Yeah.
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 So it is, and it kind of, you have to make that decision when you're doing this. Is, do you want to hire people? Do
Right.
you have good friends? I've kind of leaned on some good friends who have helped with some of the editing and help with some. I asked for contributions from people around me. Like there's a lot of the magic items in the scale mail book came from my friends who were helping me play test it, because I
Well,
just said interesting
and
magic items. Cool.
that's almost exactly how D&D started. It was the big famous spells were from people that sat at Gygax's table.
Yep.
The special artifacts and magic items. I mean, those
Yep.
were named after the players or the characters of the people that played the game. And so, I mean, there's a tradition in continuing to do that as well.
Well,
Um,
speaking to that, like if you look, especially when the art in the final book, most of the characters in the art are playtest characters that people
oh,
played. And that
okay.
was kind of my way of honoring them, the original playtesters, is to make sure their characters were featured in the book. So like most of those example characters, somebody created, somebody played. They're using my examples in the book,
Yeah.
because the same thing, like honoring their contributions and help getting this running.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's the big part of it is it's I mean, obviously, with you and I look to be about the same age.
Mhm.
We've got a certain wisdom that's behind us, and I think one of the key pieces of wisdom out there that I have learned over the years is it's not necessarily what you know. It's just like the old saying, not what you know, it's who you know.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
and I've definitely had to lean my fair share against people that I know that are in the different industries that I try to dip my toes into.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
And that's, I think, something you also have to be willing to do, is
yeah,
ask for help, ask for advice, ask for, we have a lot of great forums. You can get on Reddit, you can go on Discord. There are game creator forums out there. It can be hit or miss sometimes, to be quite honest, with some of them. But you find people. I've made friends with a lot of great creators. Have done some great games, or are up and coming people like me who are also setting out this journey for the first time for
yeah.
themselves. And it's kind of nice when you have that community of people you can kind of talk to and lean on.
How nail biting was it for you to go? All right, damn it! I'm just going to throw caution to the wind. We're going to put the cards on the table, and I'm just going to do this bloody Kickstarter and just see what happens. Like how
Uh,
I know, I
I
mean,
don't.
just from you and me talking back and forth, I know that
Yeah.
that was a good, couple of month, maybe 3 month process when
Mhm.
you first introduced it. The idea of it to me about getting onto Kickstarter.
Well,
Um,
and that's actually why I was talking to people like you, is that I had no experience in it. Like I said, I've worked for small publishers
mhm.
and I've been a freelance writer. So it's a much simpler process. So it's very intimidating because, I don't have a social media presence. I don't have a podcast. I don't have anything that people know who I am. There's a small audience of people who might know my work from previous games I've written for, but you don't know those things, and you kind of have to start,
Sure.
testing the waters and see what it is. Now, I lucked out in that I had we have a mutual friend, a good friend of mine who's my editor. he had a mutual friend named Jason. And if you see his name on the Kickstarter, he actually is a publisher of a game called Heroes and Hardships, and he's
Hmm.
got a lot of experience in terms of running Kickstarters for his games. And he agreed to help. And he's been very instrumental in a lot of this process. So that was lucky for me. But I think sometimes one of the big things too is, you have to kind of set realistic expectations for yourself. You
Sure.
know, funding goals. In terms of making sure that you're finding the right audience. You have to put yourself out there. Like you said, reach out to people like you, reach out on different
Yeah.
forums, and if you ask people, you're generous with your time with me to talk about the game. People are
I'm
willing to
happy
do
to.
it.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I know that I mean, listen, I hate to lean into the stereotype of the gamer, but I define that stereotype. That is me, and we are very introverted. We're a
mhm,
very introverted lot, and so I know the difficulty of just putting yourself out there. I
yep,
know how daunting that is.
yeah,
When I first started doing this stuff, on YouTube, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was so shy, I couldn't talk, and I'd like to think that my journey in that has at least got me to the point where I can talk competently.
very
Um,
well.
but it's also something that like I said, I know how daunting it is to just, what, throw caution to the wind. Let's get out there and we're just going to do this, because I think that the reward of doing something like this is far greater than just sitting on your hands and going, no, not doing it. Um, Bear with me, folks. I'm having a little bit of a connection issue, so let me get Mike back here.
Hello.
Okay,
Sorry.
no worries.
We're back.
Yeah, so I just basically was just saying that I know it's kind of daunting to throw the cards on the table and go ahead and drop the axe, so to speak,
Yeah.
to execute something like this. But that said, I want to go back and share the screen again. So I want to talk a little bit about scale mail itself.
Sure.
So scale mail, I mean, this asks the perfect question: what is scale mail? So
uh, yeah.
instead of me just sitting here reading all of this, I want to
Mhm.
get it right from you. What exactly is scale mail?
Scale Mail is a D20 based fantasy RPG. It uses a system that I will tell is heavily influenced by an old TSR game called Alternity.
Hmm.
That was probably one of the biggest influences on mechanics. I know Dungeon Crawl Classics uses something similar.
Right.
I think it's called Essence 20, which is the system that Renegade Games uses for like their license, like GI Joe and Power Rangers and Transformers. It's basically a D20 and another die. The difference in this is that everything in the game is uses that mechanic. There are no static modifiers. There are no plus ones, plus twos. Everything is on a scale. That's scale mail of a plus D12 at the highest range to a minus D12 at the lowest range. So each attribute is rated by a die code, so like a D4, D6.
Right.
You add certain modifiers from skills that bump it up or down on um, the scale. So if it's a positive thing, you might go from a D8 to a D10. If it's a negative, you might go from a D8 to a D4. And that's the entire mechanic. That's what's used for the dice mechanic for everything. So it makes it real simple. And that was kind of one of the goals, is a simple mechanic that anybody can pick up. Uh,
Right.
it's a player facing game. So the GM, the narrator, doesn't roll any dice. I tried to make it easy because personally, as someone who is the GM, I find a lot of satisfaction in those type of games because I can focus on the story, because I'm not having to worry about rolling dice
Right.
for everything. Everything's in the hands of the players, so you help keep people engaged. Um, and the other thing too is that my goal was everything in one book. So
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
15, 35, or $45, depending on which version you get everything. You get all the creation rules, you get a bunch of different ancestries, you get all the rules, magic items, traps, monsters. There's a decent bestiary in there. There's a setting, a world called Modus, which was a world crafted by the emotions of the gods. Now, I kind of left that as probably the small section. There's a lot of flavor of the world, but the two reasons I did that was first I kind of wanted the map to be mainly blank, so you can fill it in yourself.
Right.
There's a couple noted locations, but it's your map, it's your world. I'm just giving you the basics. But
And
also,
that's very respectable.
mm,
It and I will kind of throw in one little thing. That's something
mm,
that Gary Guy guys, Ed Greenwood and I talked about regarding the Forgotten Realms. He
mm,
created the setting, but then put it out there for anybody else to take and use and run with. And
yeah,
I know that there are other people that put settings together, throw out there, and they don't want anybody to mess with the
yeah,
history of it or the landscape of it. And
yeah,
so, I mean, I think having something, especially getting in on ground floor like this,
mm,
of a new system, a new setting, there's something kind of exciting from a player point of view
yeah,
that, hey, I can get in here and I can make these changes. And if for any other reason, you know, if the creator catches wind of it,
hmm,
hey, maybe they might like it, and the next thing you know, you've got 50, 60 letters a day that you have to reject and say, I'm sorry, we're too busy. We
yeah.
can't, we can't accommodate all of it.
Well, exactly. That's kind of what I want. I want it to be a
Yeah.
sandbox. I want it to be something, and even something that you can easily file the serial numbers off and use the game for whatever setting of your choice. You can
Right.
use it for a published setting. You could use it for your own creation. There's stuff in there that is tied to the idea of the setting, but nothing is something that is so restrictive that you can't just use it for whatever fancy game you want. But like you said, I would love the idea. We haven't really discussed licensing, but I'm going to have some kind of open license for people to use it to create with.
Yeah.
Just we haven't nailed down the specifics. We want to get the started on, make sure there's
Oh yeah,
that
absolutely.
set up.
Yeah. Yeah. First things
But
first. Yeah. You got to get the,
yeah,
the product out there. Yeah.
I would love to see people, write their own adventures, create their monsters, create bestiaries, create
Yeah.
new magic items, come up with new, what I call them paths, for the classes in the
Right.
game to kind of, specify what your character does. Come up with stuff like that because I think that's the best part about the community too, is that you have these homebrew things and now you have the opportunities to put them out in the world and say,
Yeah.
hey, this is my interpretation of this, or this is what I've created for this, or my group had fun,
Mm.
because I created this weird little village, in the middle of the kingdom of Valovia because there's a nice blank space on the map and I slapped something there. That's again
Yeah.
that part of the idea to me is that it should be something where we're using these games to tell stories, and we should be able to share those stories with other people.
So flipping through this,
Hmm.
I want to point out to something. I want to point something out to everybody, and this is the other thing that I think a lot of people are really, really going to appreciate. You have listed here a no AI policy.
Yep.
Simply put, and this is one that I will read verbatim for everybody.
Mm.
Every aspect of scale mail, from writing to art to editing to layout, was done by actual human folk. No AI was used in any part of the game or its development. We are committed to using the creativity and talents of writers and artists for everything we do. This was our policy from the start and will remain our policy for all future scale mail products.
Yes.
And I think that's a very awesome statement.
Thank you.
Um, Obviously, in this day and age, AI is it's seeping into everything.
Hmm.
Here in the United States, we've got a big football game that's going to happen tomorrow, the Super Bowl. I
What?
promise you, we are going to see some AI ads in
Yes.
that at some point. I promise
Oh
you
yeah.
that's going to happen. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it has seeped into every aspect of our lives.
Mhm.
And there are a lot of people that don't like that. And I think that by having this statement out there, I think that a lot of people, like I said, are really going to appreciate that.
I hope so because to me, that's the whole point of this is that we should, embrace other creators and we
Mhm.
should give them an opportunity and we should, hire them on to do this work and create something wonderful together. All the art that you see, there's a couple stock pieces I use just because, I didn't have all my art back from my artist. But
Mhm.
when you look at that, the art there is from my artist.
Yeah.
It's all created specifically for this game, And that was part of the Kickstarter too, is the idea to try to do more of that. If you even look on that page they have for the monsters example,
Yeah.
I commissioned him to do footers for each chapter, so each chapter has a different footer, so it's easier to kind of see what section you're going to because you can
Right.
see the different art. And it was easy. I think it's one of those things. I think we kind of get lost in the convenience of it, that it's real easy just to go on to name your AI art generator
Oh yeah. Yeah.
of choice. But even the idea of like editing, is that, yeah, you can use something like Grammarly to kind of catch all the
Yeah.
normal things,
Yeah.
but it misses a lot. And one of my biggest things when it comes to editing, especially a role playing game, is you're also not having that person who's going through and going, oh, wait, this rule you reference on page 35, you
Exactly.
contradicted on page 42.
Exactly. Yeah.
So an AI is not going to pick that up
Yeah.
because it's not something that it's trained to do.
Right.
So
No, I agree with you on that.
mhm,
I, I work in the print industry, not doing anything of this kind of scale, but we definitely see our fair share of material that comes across to be printed, and you can tell when somebody has either the artwork itself or the text itself um, has definitely been written not
yeah,
by them.
yeah,
So anyway, like I said, I think that's pretty impressive.
thank you.
Um, Now, I also want to delve a little bit into the world itself of Modus.
Mhm.
I want to know a little bit about the history of it, the drive of the world.
Yeah,
Where does Modus come from? Like what does how did you come up with the name Modus?
um, it was one thing. To be fair, a lot of what came here came from a campaign setting I created back in the '90s. Um, there's a lot of influence that came from that. Some of the names, some of the locations. I had this thing back when I created this. I called it the Sea of Glass, where it was the idea that a god got very ticked off at his
Hmm.
followers for not following the proper rites, and he who in this desert dwelling kingdom, he chucked a piece of the sun down at them to punish them, and it fused all the sand in the desert kingdom into a sea of glass. So that
Wow.
that kind of made its way to the setting. So there's glass pirates and blade ruddered boats that sail across this, like looking for treasures from the lost kingdoms. And so some of it was from that. Some of the whole idea of Modus was, I like the idea that the gods, they're called the patrons in the setting.
Hmm.
Each of them, when they were creating the world, invested an emotion into the areas they created, and that has kind of filtered down to their followers. That there's a mechanic. It's kind of the luck mechanic in the game. It's called determination, where you're essentially willing the universe to correct itself, to exert your will upon it, to do what you
Okay.
want it. And one of the things that worshiping a patron does is it gives you an opportunity to get back spent determination by kind of following the emotions and the tenets of your god. So that's kind of a role playing aspect that kind of filtered in, in terms of your faith. But you can also be someone who doesn't follow any of the gods, and still find a way to get it back. So that was a big part of it. There's a big threat in the world called the murk. No one's quite sure
Hmm.
what it is. It's like a fog that seeps, up from the Southlands and saps joy and hope from people.
Okay.
Um, and it has been spreading and spreading and spreading. No one really knows why it's doing that. As it's gained more power and influence, it's started popping out monsters born from nightmares and bad dreams from people called the Merkborn. And a lot of the monsters like goblins and ogres come from that, but there's also weird stuff that comes from it too. So that's a big part of the campaign setting. There was a great wizard named Crayson Rin who was trying to stop it, but he vanished at some point. So nobody knows what happened to him. So there's a mystery. Like the adventure I typically run when I've been testing it is kind of a delving into his great tower as a mega dungeon. Um, so that was something that's part of it. So it's kind of a mishmash of a lot of different stuff, but that was kind of the idea. Is I wanted just a world that there is a background, There is history to it, mostly result, but it's mostly revolving around the Merc. That
Okay.
has been a big change to the world, and you might have to go into the Merc lands, they're called,
Right.
and have to deal with all the things that live in the fog and deal with its effects. The longer you linger in there, the more it saps your joy and willingness to continue. So you could eventually reach a point where you just give in and just kind of just stop doing anything. You just kind of exist. Or there's also something called being. You can be tempted by the Whisperer, where it's a some kind of being that they think is associated with the Merc, and it kind of works like a super powered luck point. That if you give in to this being, um, you get a big bonus. There's a definite benefit to do it, but when you do, then you pay the price. And it can warp you physically, emotionally. Um, and one of the things it can do is it can create a permanent cloud of murk in your area.
Oh wow.
It, so
So
there's a risk
yeah, I
to
was going to say, so there's definitely risks there.
yeah
Now, looking over here, I'm shift gears just a touch here.
yeah
Looking at these two monsters here, we've got the bat swarm and the bear.
yes
And guys, forgive me if it looks a little pixelated. I'm zoomed in really big so that we can see these. But this is the basics of the stat block for the
Mhm.
monsters.
That's it.
You know,
That's a
and
stat
I
block.
love the simplisticness of it. And if anything, this should give you hint. And we haven't really gone into the mechanics of it. I'm going to kind of avoid the mechanics of the whole system
Mhm.
for this stream, but I did want to point these out just so that the viewers could kind of get an idea of really how simplistic it is to play this system, to play
Mhm.
this game,
Yeah.
because it comes across to me as being less concentrated on heavy rules
Mhm.
and more concentrating on the gameplay and the adventuring.
Yes.
Um, there's just one book. There is no DM's guide. There is no player's guide. There is no monster manual.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's all
I would assume that at a certain point, you may develop a larger bestiary.
yes. I think for any of us who game mastered for a long time, the monsters are the funnest part.
Yeah,
Coming up with
they
new
are.
weird
They really
creatures and
are. Yeah. Yeah.
horrible things to torment your
Yeah.
players with.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you saw by the stat block like that. That is it. There are some monsters that have more options and complexity to them.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
One thing I can quick point out, not going too deep into mechanics, was like the health system. If you look on there, um, I may or may not have been playing a lot of Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, and
I
Breath of the
noticed. Yeah.
Wild.
The hearts. Yeah.
But that's as simple as it is, and that to me was another big part of this game that I wanted to do. Is
Yeah.
I'm sure for a lot of us as we get older, as life kind of intrudes upon our hobby time, the amount of time that we get to game every week kind of dwindles.
Yeah.
So and this could sound like a knock against D&D and Pathfinder, but the truth is, if I have a 3 hour window to play games with my friends, and an hour and a half to 2 hours of that is taken up with one combat, we don't really get to tell the story very much. So
Right.
one of the big goals was quick combat, and that's why the health system. I think the monster that has the most health as of right now is a dragon, which has like 15 life points, and it's designed to be quick. That most combats are over in like 10-15 minutes at most.
Yeah.
So
Whereas, like in second edition AD&D, uh, one battle against three kobolds could take 2 or 3 hours.
yes,
You
it's
know, I
just
mean, so
as
yeah, that's
some people love the tactical and you have that option in here, but this is
sure.
not that. There's no attacks of opportunity. There's no, you pretty much it's the combat. There are lots of options to make it more interesting, and there's
Right.
different things you can do to give you a lot of options to maneuver and do cool things, except to just
Yeah.
swing your sword at something.
Yeah.
But it's also not meant to be that your entire game session. I think the longest combat we've had, even in the playtest against some pretty tough foes, was like half an hour. So
Gotcha.
yeah, that was
Um,
kind of part of the design.
and then you also, and we'll take a look at the different pledges in just a second,
Mhm.
but you do have a couple of different additional stretch goals. You've got solo rules,
Yes.
multi-stage menaces if it hits 5,000.
Yeah.
But I think one of the you and I were kind of talking a little bit
Mhm.
before the show, and you had mentioned that one of your concentrations was less on stretch goals and more concentrating on producing the best possible game content.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's the ultimate goal of any of this should be is that you want
Yeah,
to. The book I give to people is the book that I want them to be able to use for all their games. Even if they
right,
don't, if we get the opportunity, and I hope we do, to produce more materials and more things for the game, I don't want that to be something that you need. That
right.
there should be everything you need in the main book. Like the solo rules was one thing from the beginning because it's player facing. I thought it would be a good game to, for people who do enjoy solo play, to
Right.
have that option available to them. The multi stage menaces. Someone had mentioned another thing I'd done, during the course of talking about this game to people about boss monsters, essentially. Like, who were the villains? Who are the ultimate
Hmm.
evils? I didn't really have any because I kind of want to put that in the hands of the game masters, who is their
Right.
villain going to be. But then that kind of came up as the idea of what if we had something there like that? And that's kind of what that is there that you have to fight three stages of the boss. Each one has a different life point value, and at each
Gotcha.
stage something change. It's like a video game boss
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah, yeah. Like Elden Ring or something. Yeah,
Yes, that
yeah,
that you these are the epic end of a campaign arc or end of a campaign bosses that you fight. So
yeah.
there's going to be some of those added to the book too. So
So I want to quickly kind of go over the different pledges that folks can
mhm,
do.
yes.
Of course, the standard is you can make a pledge without receiving anything.
Mhm.
Um, the one that I picked was the hardcover and PDF because
Oh, thank you.
I'm a physical person. I
Yes.
got to have tangible book in hand to
Mhm.
flew and read through.
Yes.
But I do like the convenience of PDF as well. So anyway, I went with that option. But
Thank you.
that'll set you back $45,
Mhm.
and you've got that shipping anywhere in the world.
Mhm.
Uh, this that 45 that I assume does not cover. Yeah, it says their shipping will be collected in backer kit after the campaign ends.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, and then of course you've got if you want just the PDF, that'll
Mhm.
set you back $15.
Yep.
That's not bad. What's the in the printed book? What's
Yeah.
the number of pages? How thick is the book?
Um, if including the things that I'm knock on wood, that we'll hit the 5,000, including those type of things, and barring that we don't hit any other goals, it's going to probably come in a little under 300 pages for the physical
Wow, that's a
copy.
pretty big one. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good size book. So I mean, so $15 for something of that size,
Hmm.
that's a pretty damn good deal. I mean,
Thank you.
we have certainly seen to use the same equivalent.
Hmm.
uh, Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're talking D&D at this point, but look at some of their books. What the latest one that they just pushed out was the Artificer, Forge of the Artificer. It's
Hmm.
like 64 pages and it
Yeah.
was $30.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get, apples to oranges a little bit there, but
Yeah.
the point is it's a digital thing. If it's $15, I think that's a great price. Um, then you've got the scale mail soft cover plus PDF is $35. Yeah, I went with the hardcover because I like hardcover books, but I digress. Um, and again, apologies, guys. We're having a little bit of connectivity issue here, so let me get Mike back.
Yep.
There we go. Welcome back, Mike.
I think I
Um,
think I think Wizards of the Coast heard you when you were talking about the
yeah,
Coast Game.
it's got to be what it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
Pinkertons are outside my door. Yeah, so I mean, you're not overloading it. That's one thing that I really like is you're not overloading the options with so much extra crap that
Yeah.
it bogs down the point and goal of this.
Well,
Um,
even one of those things that is on there is, I know times are tough for people, in
yeah,
terms of costs and expenses. I didn't want to make it, I'm okay taking less profit to make the book cheaper for people. And even though it's only a $10 difference, even having the soft core option or soft core soft cover option,
yeah,
um, that is, we will not be doing the soft core version of Scale Mail, I can tell you that. The soft cover option
that would
is,
be scale mail, MALE, right? Scale.
yes,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
would.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole different game. We're not gonna talk about that. That it's a little cheaper because if somebody wants a physical copy, but they don't want
Right.
to have to spend, or to be frank, they don't want to take a risk on spending more money on something they're not sure about yet, to give you an option that if you want a physical copy, that there's a slightly cheaper option, to make it a little more affordable for people. I'm going to try to keep in terms of the printing that we're using, it's going to be a little easier for us to ship it around the world, at lower costs.
Right.
So that's kind of one of the goal too, is to make it something that people can afford and not feel too worried about the risk, about the
Yeah.
cost of it.
Yeah.
Like you said, we're going to produce the best product that we can, and that we're going to, bring it to people to have a complete game for 45 bucks, 15 bucks, or 35 bucks. So,
Right. So I want to kind of jump back a little bit to one of the first things we were kind of talking about in all of this.
mhm.
What has been, I mean, a lot of people will say the question is going to be what has been the most challenging aspect of putting this all together, specifically for a Kickstarter. I know some folks would say, well, it's the actual editing and putting together of the book itself.
Mm.
Barring that, what has been the most challenging aspect of getting this to fruition?
Marketing.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I don't have a big social media presence. I'm known for a small group of people probably who know my other games that I've written. And I think that's been the stressful part, but I think, it's something you have to do. You have to put yourself out there everywhere you can. You have to post everywhere you can. You have to
Yeah.
not annoy people, but kind of make sure that people know that your game's out there. And even then, you can put all that effort into it and still not see a huge growth or see something, but I think that's kind of been the stressful part. Um, Layout, layout's a little stressful to me,
Yeah.
because it's new. And I'm the one responsible for it, so that's been part of it. The writing is not a big deal to me. The editing, I'm good with that, and like I said, I have friends who can help me with that. Uh, I have most of the book already laid out, so
Okay.
my hope is to we I think we say December in the Kickstarter. I can't make any guarantees, but I would love to have it out
Sure.
before then, like
Sure.
as early as we can to get in people's hands. Um,
Well,
and I
and,
think
and
it's
I
just
know that again, from a printing standpoint, um, it takes a bit. I mean, it's because I mean, copier the printing companies, they're not just sitting by going, okay,
yeah,
we're going to mark off the 17th, 18th, 19th, to the 20th of February to print scale mail. That's not how
yeah,
they operate. They're printing
yeah,
stuff from 6, 8 months ago. So
right. And
when
there are
you get
printers out
ready to
there that oh good, yeah.
no, no, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say is that there are printers out there who will do that, but you're gonna pay for
Oh,
it.
yeah, yeah.
So
You're going to pay out the wazoo for it. Yeah.
yeah.
So, I mean, that's if anything, I understand that aspect of it. Yeah, that
Mm.
is definitely a challenge. Um, what what advice would you have for that guy in the basement that's just dreaming of wanting to put together their adventure,
Mhm.
their their system, and put it in book form on Kickstarter and just run with it? What would your key advice be on that?
You're only gonna fail if you never try. Um, that's
Exactly.
just that's
Yeah.
just the truth of it, is that, yeah, you're putting yourself at risk. I mean, I think you have to be smart about managing your risks, don't start commissioning, $10,000 worth of art, expecting to get it all back, because the
Right.
chances are you might not, especially if you're like me, where you don't really have, that big fan base and the people that, who know your work. I'm hoping that I get there at some point.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm hoping through scale mail that, it gets to the point where people do embrace the game and enjoy it. Like, everyone who's played it's liked it, so I hope people could take a chance on it. But you can't really go into this expecting. I actually saw it happen recently with someone else who did a Kickstarter where they set this ridiculous goal for something that they expected to be a money printing machine. You have to also
Mhm.
recognize that Kickstarter is not always going to work out like you plan. Some people, it's amazing, it's success
Yeah.
they have, and deserve success about working really hard to come up with the product. Some people make fantastic products and nobody know they exist.
Right.
So you have to kind of come into understanding that too. That's why I kind of kept the goals pretty realistic, in terms of the funding. So I've made back my investment at this point
Well,
with a
that's good.
little extra to spare,
Yeah.
but that again wasn't the goal. Is to
Right.
it was to get the game out there into people's
Right.
hands. So
Yeah, I understand all about, yeah, the expectations and the goals. Um, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap things up here. But I like I said, I kind of wanted to just focus on this and
I
ask a
appreciate
couple
it.
of
Yeah.
behind the scene questions. Because I think most of us are already familiar with Kickstarter,
Mhm.
and kind of how that, well, at least from the purchasing side of things. I know how to
Yes.
make a pledge, I know how to
Yeah.
wait patiently and wait for my stuff to show up.
Hmm.
But I was more curious for everybody to kind of learn the behind the scenes stuff in
Yeah.
getting something to
Well,
being published.
this is the advice I got from Jason, which I think was very good. Is you have to, well, one more thing, you have to account for the fact that you do have to pay Kickstarter, and if you
Yeah,
use someone like BackerKit, which we're doing, you have to account for that.
right.
But yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of extra expenses you have to make sure you have kind of factored in. There's a lot of different things too. But again, like if you don't try, if you've got this thing that you're just kind of chomping at the bit to
Yeah,
to put out there, or
yeah,
everyone of your friends tells you, oh, this is a great module, this is a great, monster, this is a great class, for Shadow Dark. I think people would really like that.
right.
Do it. There.
And you can only cross your fingers and hope that like with American Idol, that your
Mhm.
friends and family aren't just telling you you can sing,
Yeah.
and then you get on the show and you just can't. Uh,
Yeah.
so there's always that hesitation too. Now, before we do go, I do want to open this up
Mhm.
to the chat. If anybody has any questions for Mike, um, feel free to ask. Uh, we've got a few folks that I want to kind of point out. Sword and Stones, this Tim,
Mhm.
he's downloaded the preview copy. Looks way cool.
Well,
Tim
thank you.
also is working on his own system,
Mhm.
one that I've been checking out for about a year and a half now, and it's aptly called Swords and Stones.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a fun little system.
Good luck to
Um,
him. Yeah.
Jeff Woody Art, he's a good friend of the channel. He's an artist, if you
Mhm.
can't tell by the name there, and he's actually done a couple of art pieces for me. In fact, we've got a project that we're working on for later in October of this year.
A good
Uh,
artist is a wonderful find. So.
yeah, it is. Well, I mean, so okay. Well, I'm friends with another creator that's doing one. It's a superhero role playing game.
Mhm.
Bear the Gen X GM. He's trying to put that together and just trying to find artists.
Mhm.
His Oh my God, I mean,
Yeah.
he's probably gone through 7, 8 different artists, and
Yeah.
it's the type of situation where he reaches out. I'm ready to pay you money,
Mhm.
and the guy says, "Yeah, okay, let's do this." And then they make the agreement. Money hasn't yet changed hands. It's just waiting for the artist to say, "Here's my address to send me the cash," and then they just up and vanish.
Yeah.
What?
I've had that happen.
What?
It is. It's hard to find people. It's, I think, why you end up wearing a lot of hats yourself, what you
Yeah,
can do yourself,
yeah,
because you kinda have to reach that point where you say, "Okay, I can take a risk on people, or I have to teach myself a couple new tricks," but like I said, art is not one I can do. It
right,
would not be. And there are options out there, but I would rather pay an artist and have art that reflects what I'm trying to do.
sure,
Even if it's a struggle to find somebody that you can kind of really rely on, but to have that person, who can work. And that's the thing I'll say with William the artist, is that it's amazing to me as someone who's not an artist, that I could just write, a small paragraph describing something, and what he brings back is like so much better than I could have ever imagined.
yeah,
Or like somehow he managed to capture something that, even in my own imagination, I didn't have a real clear idea for, but it's like, oh yeah, this is what I was
yeah,
looking for.
yeah.
So that's what amazes me with an artist, is they can do that.
Yeah, and I think there is a certain appeal. Again, you and I were kind of talking about this
Hmm.
before the show. Um, that you went with black and white because I mean
Hmm.
it is less expensive, but there
Yeah.
is a very distinct pull of nostalgia from
Mhm.
that. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
that's what we kind of grew up with in the first edition of D&D, and then a little bit into second edition before they started going full on color with, like, Jeff
Mhm.
Easley and and that whole bunch of artists. And I don't know, there's just something, like I said, there's something very nostalgic about just black and white. Um,
I tell you, it was always black and white in my head.
you
Like
know,
there was never a point in where I was thinking.
hmm. We've had a little bit of connection issue, I think. See if we can get him back. There we go.
I
It
was
was
like,
always black and white in your head.
yeah, that's, I mean, even if I had made art, I had been purchasing a ton of this art beforehand, like slowly, drips and drabs, kind of
Yeah,
getting pieces here and there when I could afford
building
it.
some
And
assets.
my artist he's more than reasonable. I hope he doesn't realize how much he's worth sometimes, because he's being more than fair to me about this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's something that you have to have that vision too, and because, like I said, at the beginning, this is kind of like my version of Dungeons and Dragons,
Right.
that kind of calls back to the idea of when I first fell in love with role playing. That was the art that we had. And, it kind of it's nostalgic for me too to
Yeah.
have that. So
Well, I want to thank you for jumping in tonight,
you're welcome.
and just hanging with me for a bit, answering some questions about the whole process of it, and kind of educating me too on exactly what scale mail is. I know the Kickstarter itself has got, jumping back up here, has got 3 days left to go.
Mhm. Yep.
And I mean, you're definitely above goal, so it's something that's going to happen.
Yes.
Barring any catastrophic event or anything, but it is something that's going to happen. And so, I
Yeah.
mean, guys, if y'all are interested in this, jump in and check it out. Now, I assume that if anybody wants to grab a copy after the Kickstarter has ended,
Yeah.
that is going to be a possibility. And we lost Mike again. Here we go.
Man, Wizards of the Coast really is trying to bring us down.
I know it. Tell me about it. Um, it's comical.
Yeah,
Uh,
there will be late pledges. I
yeah.
think that's where you're
Okay.
going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Late pledge.
And,
Okay.
and it will be eventually on Drive Through RPG and the
Gotcha.
usual sources. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, Mike, is there anything final last words that you'd like to add to the?
I guess, and you already mentioned it too, but even if you're not sure about it, there is a free quick start available.
Yes, there
That
is.
is available. You can find it on Drive Through RPG and on the Kickstarter page. So like I said, I wanted that too, and that's always going to be available. I'm not going to take that down once the game comes out. I like the idea that you have the ability to try a game before you really can commit to it. And it'll tell you probably it's not the full rules, but it'll tell you enough to know if it's going to be the right fit for
Get you
you.
started. Yeah.
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 So
Yeah.
yeah,
All right.
no, I appreciate it very much, Brian.
All right. Well, I'm definitely, like I said, I've pledged.
Thank you.
So I'll definitely be keeping eyes on it because I'm kind of curious to see, how much higher it can go.
Mhm.
And I think it goes without say that once I do get the copies in my hands,
Mhm.
there's obviously going to be a full-on review of it as a video on
Mhm.
the channel itself. So, guys, that's something always that I'm certainly looking forward to checking out. Um, well, anyway, Mike, again, I want to thank you for joining in tonight. And
Yes.
hey, guys, I want to thank everybody for sitting in and watching.
Yeah.
Um, I like to do a typical sign off of, until next our paths cross. So let me take a look here real quick. Let's see. What would be a good sign off? How about I'll pull out one of the monsters that a bat swarm. How about that? We'll tie
There
in
you go.
bat swarm. So, folks, thanks for watching. And until next our paths cross, may you come face to face with a swarm of bats.
Indeed.